The Alien movie contains mysteries that we explore in the videos. What the mysteries are and why they are in the movie is due to the background and production of the Alien movie. The movie's script changed several times before the movie was produced and during production. In addition, scenes were added and changed to the movie during production. Not all of these changes are noted in the scripts. In the film, Brett is the first victim of the fully grown alien. While his death scene is not among the greatest mysteries of Alien, it does contain several interesting details and lesser-known aspects. During production, the scene was altered somewhat, and in Dan O'Bannon's original story, the character corresponding to Brett was not the first to die at the hands of the adult alien. In the original version, a character named Malkonis is the first to be killed by the fully grown creature when it tears his head off. Malkonis, in turn, roughly corresponds to the character Lambert in the final film. As the screenplay evolved between 1977 and 1978, the characters in various scenes underwent several changes. Originally, Brett was meant to die when the alien strikes him in the chest with its inner jaw. In that version, Brett disappears somewhere within the Nostromo. When the rest of the crew goes searching for him, they find his corpse with a hole in his chest, similar to the one seen earlier on the space jockey aboard the derelict. This would have created an independent narrative thread where Brett's injury would have puzzled the crew who had previously discovered the space jockey. Ridley Scott rejected the idea because it too closely resembled Kane's death, the famous chestburster scene, and it also created confusion with the wound seen on the space jockey. After that, Brett's death scene went through several revisions. In one draft of the script, written in the spring of 1978 before filming began, Brett, Parker, and Ripley are searching for the chestburster alien. As in the final film, they come across the ship's cat, Jones, who escapes. While they are looking for the cat, the fully grown alien ambushes them from above. It grabs Brett and crushes him, snapping his spine. Parker and Ripley turn around just in time to witness the horrifying scene as Brett screams in agony. They watch in shock as the alien carries Brett's still twitching body away. As production drew nearer, Brett's death scene evolved further, eventually taking the form that appears in the final version of the film. Brett's death scene was filmed on September 6th and 7th, and it unfolded as follows. Ripley, Parker, and Brett search for the chestburster alien on Deck C. Jones the cat runs off, and Brett goes after him alone, while Parker and Ripley continue searching the corridor on the same deck. Brett follows the cat first into the equipment maintenance area, and then into the undercarriage room, also known as the claw room. This was the landing leg compartment where the floor would open so the ship's leg could extend downward to support the Nostromo. As Brett searches for the cat, the alien is shown hanging above him. The alien, hanging from the chains above, finally ambushes Brett just as he finds Jones. Brett turns around and sees the creature suspended in the air. Having been searching for a much smaller organism, he is shocked and stunned by the alien's massive size. The alien, in turn, seems curious about Brett, almost mesmerized by him, as it studies its prey. While hanging from the chains, the creature grabs Brett by the head and slides its tail between his legs. Brett, panicking, doesn't understand what's happening until the alien drives the tip of its tail into his back and pulls him closer. The alien opens its mouth and begins crushing Brett's head. Blood pours from his scalp as the creature tightens its grip. Brett screams in agony, his legs trembling violently. Eventually, his skull cracks open and he collapses to the floor. Parker and Ripley hear his screams and rush toward the undercarriage room. As they enter the room, they see the alien lifting Brett up into the overhead structure. They run to the spot where Brett was taken, just as blood begins dripping heavily onto Parker from above. This is the version of the scene that was originally filmed for the movie. Because of this version, the cocoon sequence, in which Brett's character is seen encased in an egg-like structure, shows him with a crushed head. For the cocoon scene, special props and set pieces of Brett's character were created. One of these props shows Brett with an eye bulging out as a result of his head being crushed, though interestingly, the rest of the head remains intact in this version of the prop. This filmed version interestingly highlights the alien creature's curious nature. In the scene, the alien is not overtly threatening or aggressive. Instead, it appears intrigued by Brett. At first, it even seems to gently touch or stroke his head before beginning to crush it. The alien's curiosity is a recurring trait in several other scenes of the script. It's an important nuance in how the creature was originally conceived, one that, unfortunately, was largely lost in the final cut of the film. The alien's curiosity toward the Nostromo's crew and its surroundings could have added a fascinating layer of depth to the creature's character. Later, in James Cameron's Aliens, both the script and the film portray the xenomorphs in a far more one-dimensional way as insectoid beings, devoid of the mysterious intelligence and curiosity written in original screenplay and seen in Ridley Scott's vision. A large amount of footage was shot for the entire sequence, though most of it was ultimately cut from the final film. One deleted segment was based on an earlier draft of the script, which described the alien silently moving through the corridors of Deck C, stalking its future prey, Ripley, Parker, and Brett, without their knowledge. Test footage for this idea was filmed, but Ridley Scott decided to scrap it entirely, as it would have revealed too much of the alien before the crucial Brett death scene. The same reasoning applied to several other cuts. Scott wanted to avoid showing the creature too much. Brett's death was the first scene in which the fully grown alien would be revealed, and Scott was determined not to depict a man in a rubber suit. He ultimately adopted a less is more philosophy, showing the alien as little as possible, allowing the audience's imagination to fill in the terror. To film the moment where the alien appears suspended above Brett, the production team used a rig equipped with a cradle that held the actor of the alien in place. The alien's tail movement was originally meant to be controlled by an internal wire mechanism, but it didn't function properly. In the end, the tail was operated using external wires, a technique that was later used in all scenes featuring the fully grown alien's tail. For the head-crushing effect, Nick Alder and his team ran small tubes through Harry Dean Stanton's hair and beneath his cap, preparing the setup for the blood effect during Brett's death scene. When the alien crushes Brett's head, blood was pumped through the tubes, streaming down Stanton's face dramatically. During filming, Ridley Scott also used a dog to achieve the cat's frightened reaction. To do this, a German Shepherd was kept hidden on a leash behind a wooden board. The cat was coaxed into view, and then the hidden dog was suddenly revealed. This method allowed the filmmakers to capture the cat's genuine reaction. However, because of how the effect was staged, the cat is seen reacting to something at floor level rather than above, even though, in reality, the alien was positioned overhead. The dog was also used to help direct Harry Dean Stanton, who played Brett. Stanton felt that he might ruin the scene because he didn't know how to convincingly act terrified. He said he could laugh, cry, and perform any other emotion, but not act truly terrified. Ridley Scott solved this problem by taking advantage of Stanton's fear of pets. He used that fear during filming to guide Stanton's performance and bring out a genuine sense of terror in the scene. The growls and startled expressions seen in the original footage were achieved by suddenly presenting the dog to Stanton during filming. Originally, Scott wanted to emphasize the alien's grotesque nature by adding maggots to the creature's head. The idea was that live white maggots would crawl out of its skull. The production even ordered the maggots and tested the concept, but under the hot set lights, the insects wouldn't move. As a result, the idea was abandoned. Additional footage for Brett's death scene was filmed later, in late November and early December of 1978. With these reshoots, the scene was adjusted to make it appear as though the alien was not suspended in the air the entire time by the chains, but instead descended to the floor of the undercarriage room. In reality, however, the alien remained suspended throughout the scene. The illusion of it landing was created purely through camera angles and editing. At the same time, the idea of showing the alien crushing Brett's head was reconsidered. A few days later, a new effects shot was filmed in which the alien's inner jaw pierces through Brett's head, the same effect that was later used for Parker's death scene. In the final cut of the movie, the sequence was edited to give viewers the impression that the alien descends to the floor, strikes its inner jaw through Brett's skull and cap, and then carries his body up into the overhead structure. The scene was restructured to include footage of the alien approaching, followed by the inner jaw piercing effect, and then a very brief shot of the original head-crushing material. All footage involving the alien's tail was removed, except for the brief shot where the tail moves between Brett's legs, a moment Ridley Scott later reused in Lambert's death scene. Additionally, the sequence showing Ripley and Parker entering the undercarriage room was edited to appear slightly later. As a result, in the film, the only witness to the horrifying event is Jones the cat. The final changes to the scene were most likely made because of its excessive length and graphic violence. Although the originally filmed version, in which Brett's head is crushed, was unique, especially considering that at the final film Parker and Brett ultimately die in the same way, it was deemed too long and too graphic to include in the finished film. These changes, specifically alien piercing Brett's head with its inner jaw, caused a continuity error later in the cocoon scene. In that sequence, Brett's head shows no injury from the alien's inner jaw because the cocoon scene was filmed well before the final revisions to Brett's death scene were made. Brett's death scene has long sparked curiosity and debate among fans. One frequent question concerns the alien's apparent ability to float or hover in the air, something that has puzzled many sharp-eyed viewers. When asked about it, Ridley Scott responded cryptically, saying that the answer lies in why there are chains hanging from the ceiling of the undercarriage room. In other words, Scott hinted that the alien uses the chains and the surrounding equipment to move about overhead. Another common point of confusion is how the alien manages to carry Brett upward. If it's gripping Brett with its arms, how can it climb the chains at the same time? There's no official explanation, but the most likely the answer lies in the creature's tail. It could be holding Brett with its tail while climbing. The logic isn't perfect, but it's the most plausible of the available explanations. In reality, the creature's movement through the air doesn't represent anything particularly realistic or believable within the film's logic. For this reason, the sequence was edited in the final version so that audiences wouldn't question how the alien appears to be floating. In the end, the alien's ability to operate in midair is one of those mysteries best left unexplained. A third point of curiosity involves the constant dripping water in the undercarriage room. Ridley Scott wanted to heighten the eerie, ghostly atmosphere of the space, which already featured swaying, clinking chains as well as steam and smoke, but felt it still lacked something. Special effects supervisor Nick Alder experimented by adding a gentle stream of falling water illuminated dramatically from behind. Scott immediately approved, saying it achieved exactly the mood he was after. Studio people were puzzled by Scott's artistic choices, especially the dripping water and moving chains. Scott defended his decision by explaining that the chains were used for loading equipment and that the water represented condensation from the Nostromo's faulty air conditioning system. In the original version of the scene, the alien's tail had a clear function, unlike in Lambert's death scene, where some of the same footage was later re-edited and reused. The tail would later take on a more significant role in James Cameron's Alien screenplay, where the creatures were described as paralyzing their victims by stabbing them with their tails. Ultimately, however, this insect-inspired trait was dropped from the final version of Aliens. The purpose and design of the alien's tail in the deleted scenes from the first film have also sparked much discussion. In several behind-the-scenes materials, the tail appears positioned more toward the front of the creature's body rather than the back, as would normally be expected. Additionally, confusion has arisen over the deleted material from Lambert and Parker's death scene, in which the alien's tail is portrayed in a distinctly phallic way, stiffening and rising toward Lambert. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the original version, where Brett's head is crushed, should have been kept in the film, or do you prefer the version seen in the final cut, where the alien kills him with its inner jaw? Also, let us know what you think about the overall execution of Brett's death scene. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Subscribing is free, and this way you'll always get notified whenever new content related to the Alien franchise is uploaded to the channel.